In this video, I'm going to tell you an actual story, how the Pagans Motorcycle Club saved my life. But before I tell you the actual story, I need to give you a little background to how I got to that point where I needed to be saved by the Pagans. So, to qualify this, I've never done any business with the Pagans. If the FBI is watching, I was never really intimate friends with them. I just knew them from the neighborhood. And I never did see them do anything bad or illegal, just for the record. But I haven't made a video in a couple of weeks. I've been going through some trials in my life, and just, I made this channel to kind of bridge a gap between evangelicals and Catholics, because even though I was baptized Catholic, I left the church at age 19 and became a what the world would call an evangelical Christian. What I would call myself at those times was a born-again Christian, or a Bible-believing Christian. And there's a big misunderstanding amongst evangelicals of what Catholics believe. So I made this channel to try to bridge that gap. And sometimes I challenge my evangelical brothers or get a little sarcastic, just kind of get under their skin so they search for the truth to try and disprove me. And then, like, when I was trying to disprove Catholics, I came upon the truth that the Catholic Church was the church that Christ established. So that's why this channel was made. So basically apologetics, and also sometimes to challenge my atheistic friends and family, to give them some thoughts. And I get some pushback from some people with it, but it's cool. But today's a little different. Today I'm just going to kind of give you a testimony. And the reason being is, like I said, I haven't made a video in a couple of weeks because it's kind of uninspired. There's a lot that I want to do, but I got to get, I like to get my facts straight before I shoot them out. I don't want to have anything, I want to be loose with the facts. And a lot of the stuff I got is pretty deep and factual, and I just haven't had the mental energy to focus. But when my kids were little, they're all grown now. 5 kids are grown with family of their own. Every single one of them is married with children or a child. But when they were little, I was reminded, I read and understood that Moses taught the people of Israel to teach their children. He really stressed it, to teach their children about God and the law and the Jewish faith. And one thing he said was to remind them what God did for them, especially the Passover, how God saved Israel from Egypt. And as our children were little, I always reminded them and always taught them the wonderful things God did for his people and what God did for me and our family personally. And so when they had times of doubt and their faith was weak, they could go back and recall what God had did. And that's what I told them: when you feel doubtful and your faith is weak, remember what God did for our family. He's real. And I do that with my own personal self. And going through this trial, I had to remind myself of what God did. And I just give you a couple of examples. I can go on for hours with the things that God had done in my life for me. Number one, I remember the time when my children were small and I just started a new job and my insurance didn't kick in yet. And I had to take my baby to the doctor on Monday, and the cash price was $100 even if you had no insurance. And I was broke. I just started a new job, and I was just praying. I didn't tell anybody. I was too embarrassed to share this with anybody. But I was praying that somehow God would miraculously provide. And the Sunday before I went to the doctor on Monday, or my wife went, but I had to give her the money. I go into church in the morning, and the pastor's there greeting everybody. It was a Christian Missionary Alliance church, a tiny little church, a really good pastor. And he said, "Rob, somebody told me to give you this." I go, "What is it?" He goes, "I don't know." I said, "Who gave it to you?" He goes, "They told me they want it to be anonymous." And I'm like, "Really?" I open it up, and there's a crisp $100 bill in there. And these were just the many miracles that I've experienced since following the Lord. Then later on, when I moved to Florida, I was in New Jersey, I moved to Florida, had a really good union job working for the 3rd largest trucking company in the world, Consolidated Freightways, been in business 101 years, And lo and behold, on Labor Day, I see my answer machines. Back in the day when we had answer machines and they'd be flashing and you hit it and see who left the voicemail. We didn't even call, or a message, we called it back then. And it was the CEO of Consolidated Freightways telling me they're out of business, don't go back to work tomorrow. So just like that, no notice, lost a really good paying union job. And so, you know, there was no Indeed.com back then. In fact, I don't even think I owned a computer. So the next day I'm sitting in the driveway, had a new house, you know, had a house payment, had 5 small kids that my wife was homeschooling. I was the sole provider, and I'm like, Lord, just show me a job in here. So I'm going through the classifieds and I see, be an actor, make $500 a day. So I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. Everybody thought I was crazy. I went to this agent, Ariza Talent and Modeling, Longwood, Florida, right outside of Orlando here. And I walk in, and this guy's got scripture all over his beautiful, amazing office. And he's got like glass windows with scriptures up there. And so I said to him, I said, wow, I really like that you had, you know, Bible verses everywhere. He goes, oh, you're a Christian? I go, yeah. So we shook hands. And he said, yeah, I'm a Christian. We started talking about the Lord. And he said, so you want to be an actor? You want to do extra work, or you want to do principal work and make the big money? I go, no, I want to do the principal work and make the big money. He goes, so have you been to acting school? I go, no. He goes, have you ever done this before? I go, no. He's like, have you ever been in a play in school? I go, no, I didn't go to much school when I was a kid. And he's like, well, what do you do now? I said, well, I was a truck driver, but I just got laid off. So he busts out in laughter. He's like, so what makes you think you can do this? I go, I don't know. I just feel like I can do this. So he gives me a little index card with some kind of like word, you know, like a commercial for a Publix supermarket. And he said, I need you to memorize this, come back and say it enthusiastically. Long story short, I do it. He's like, wow, you did good. And he said, you know, I'm reading this book, Jobaz's Prayer. It was like real famous amongst evangelicals. This book was like bestseller for a few weeks in Christian bookstores. You know, this is going back like 20 years ago or so. And he says, in it says that we should bless people with the blessings we received. And I want to bless you today. What can I do? I said, well, just, you know, send me out on auditions. Give me a shot. So lo and behold, like 2 days later, he calls me up with an audition for like a Disney commercial. I go and do it, the audition. Next thing I know, I'm getting a call from Wardrobe. I got it. It's $800 for 1 day's work. So after a couple days, I call him up and I'm like, hey, when am I going to get paid for that commercial I just did, Jeff? And he's like, bro, he said, these things take time. And the funny thing is, he grew up in the town I grew up in, Irvington, which is kind of like the hood, to say the least, but Irvington, New Jersey. And so we kind of spoke the same language. He was African American, I was Italian, Irish guy, but you know, we grew up on the avenue, both grew up on Springfield Avenue. So I'm like, yo, bro, when am I getting paid? And he's like, bro, these things take time. They take a few months. I'm like, ah, crap. He's like, come on in today. I'll front you the money. I'm like, really? So I go into his office and he said, you got paid $800 for that. I said, yeah, I know. He goes, now, you know, as the agent, I get 20%. I said, yeah, I know. It's cool. He's like, God told me not to take a penny from you. So he hands me a check for $800. I'm like, wow, praise the Lord. I'm like, thank you, man. He's like, don't thank me. I want to take your money. Thank the Lord. So after that, I did an audition and got a principal job every week for the next 6 weeks. And they paid between $600 and $800 every time. Plus, I had 5 kids and a wife that were doing extra work. And every time they did an extra job, they were getting paid $100. And he never made me wait. And he never took the 20%. So I actually did pretty good for the next 6 weeks. And then I got a factory job. And it was the funnest job I ever had. And the Lord provided in a strange and unusual way that I'll never forget. So when I say God has done miracles in my life, this is what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you watching this, if you're a follower of Christ, if you dig back deep and you think about it, you can come up with miracles God did in your life. But a lot of times we don't dwell on that. We just think that things just happen. But if you really put the pieces together, you'll see God working in your life. So I'm telling you all this to build up, to show you how it was such a miracle that the Pagans saved me. And I like a lesson in everything that I put on this channel. I don't want to waste your time. I want you to learn. And there's 2 lessons. Number 1, the power of God, how God changes wretches like myself, sinners like myself. And number 2, the moral law. And when I try and teach the moral law, usually like with an atheist video, like challenging atheists, everyone misunderstands. The atheists think that I'm saying if you don't believe in God, you can't be moral. They always misunderstand. I'm saying the exact opposite. I'm saying the moral law that's been taught since the beginning, St. Paul's taught this, and Augustine taught it, and St. Thomas Aquinas. I'm just teaching it again, trying it in a blue-collar way to explain it. I didn't create this argument of the moral law. But the moral law teaches that even without believing in God, we still know right from wrong. So there must be a God. So the moral law teaches us that even though we all struggle doing the right thing, none of us can always do the right thing. We always sin and fall short. Even if you don't believe in God, you're still trying to do the right thing. Even though it's hard to do the right thing, why would we do that if we were just dust in the wind blowing and somehow everything came from nothing and we were just formed in the human beings? Like, what would be the purpose, the evolutionary purpose, if we weren't made in the image of God and there wasn't a God? And point number 2 with that I don't hear talked about much, but in Catholic theology, we believe that although we sin and fall short of the glory of God and we needed Jesus to save us from our sin, and we need to be baptized and follow Christ and repent to be redeemed, there's still the image of God in us. So there's still some goodness that can recognize that we need to repent. And we have the free will to do it. Where Calvinist Protestants say, no, there's nothing. We're like total 100%, 100% no good. There's nothing good in us. I forget the doctrine that's used it's in Tulip, T-U-L-I-P. If you look up Tulip, Calvinist belief in Tulip, it's in there. But we're total deprivation, maybe. We're totally depraved. There's no good in us unless God chose us before we were born to seek Him. We would never think to seek Him. We would just want to do bad. So Catholic theology doesn't believe that. That's the Calvinist sect of Protestant believes that. We believe that even though we're sinners, we still have some good in us because we're made in the image of God. So with no further ado, I'm going to get to how the pagans saved me. So I was born in Newark, New Jersey, pretty rough area. Grew up in Irvington and kind of went back and forth, Irvington and Newark, getting in trouble. At age 12, one of my school teachers was a part-time pharmacist, used to give me heavy-duty pills, narcotics to sell on the street. With that money, I was buying crystal meth, snorting with my friends at age 12, doing Valiums and Quaaludes and crystal meth to keep it even, so I wasn't too hyper but wasn't too down. Getting into fights all the time, drinking constantly, total wretch, total sinner. And back then, to be served alcohol, you had to be 18. But in the hood, if you looked 18 and you were 15, they didn't question you as long as you had money and you tipped the barmaid or bartender. They didn't give a crap. So at 15, it was like a regular thing to go Friday night to the Bavarian Inn. It was a little strip bar on the corner where I lived. And the funnest part of the night was it would always break out into a fight where the whole place was like something you see on TV. You're just hitting guys, boom, boom, and it was just like a total brawl. And for some crazy reason, me and my friends thought that was fun. But one night, I turned around and threw a punch, and I hit this guy in the mouth. And it turned out he was a member of the Pagan Motorcycle Club. And I didn't realize it at the time, so I was just going and going. And then when the cops came, we all ran out the back door. That was our routine. And a friend of mine the next day said, you know, you punched a freaking pagan, you're going to be dead. And these guys had a really scary reputation. Like, people feared these guys worse than they feared the mafia in my town. Because the mafia was a little more predictable than these guys. These guys weren't very predictable. But long story short, I knew who he was. So I said, listen, I ain't going to wait for this guy to, hit me upside the head with a bat or shoot me in the back of the head. I'm going to go to him and apologize. So I went, I said, hey, listen, man, things got a little hairy in there. I didn't realize who I was hitting. I apologize. And he's like, no problem, man. I didn't even know what was going on either. I was just throwing punches, shook hands, and that was cool. So a couple weeks later, or actually probably a while later, because I was like 17 when this happened, we're in a bar, Friendly's Tavern, on the border of Newark and Irvington, New Jersey. And I see him there, and of course I did the diplomatic thing and bought him a drink, and started telling him some jokes, and he's laughing, and everybody, all the pagans, there's a group of pagans, maybe a dozen there, laughing. And again, I did no business with these people, and they just seemed like regular guys to me, you know. And I got so drunk, me and my friend left, and he drove this cool 65 Mustang, blue on the outside and white leather interior on the inside. And we're going to his car, and I don't know what happened, but I got into a fight, and about 10 guys whipped out knives, and the next thing I know, they're slicing up my face, and then they go for the kill shot, and I put up my arm to block my heart, and the knife, I don't know if you can see it on here, but it went through there, the scar goes down to there, came out here, scar goes down to there, and they hit an artery, and the blood was shooting all over. And they were still coming to get me. They would have probably killed me if my friend didn't run in and ask for help, and all those pagans came out. And just seeing these pagans scared this group of guys to jump in their car and take off. So this is how the pagans saved my life, so Jesus could save my soul. Because after that, I started thinking about my life and started thinking about God. It took me a couple of years to join the Navy and give my heart to Jesus, but that's what I did. So I want to thank the pagans for saving my life, so Jesus could save my soul. And the lesson from that, again, the moral law. These guys were some bad dudes. They obviously did some bad things, and they were pagans, so they didn't believe in God. I mean, that wasn't just their name of their gang. That's, you know, they took a pledge that they're pagans. You know, they don't believe in God. Yet, they knew the right thing was to save me. And they really didn't know me, you know, just from chit-chatting. So again, the moral law in play. And it also goes to show that God can use anybody to help you, you know. Later on, maybe, I don't know, 10 years later when I got out of the Navy, I was going to a Baptist church in New Jersey. And there was a dude there, all tatted up, ex-biker who was studying to be a pastor, really cool dude. And he told me that he was a pagan pledge. That means you ride with them for 6 months, and then they all vote if you want to be in. So he said in that time he became a born-again Christian, and his cousin who was in the gang said, "Hey man, they accepted you, praise, you know, you're in, congratulations." He's like, "Dude, I can't be a pagan. I'm a Christian now." He's like, "That's all right, don't worry about it." He's like, "No, you don't understand. I'm a Christian. I can't be a pagan." So I thought that was kind of funny. But so God can use anybody. That's why we should never judge and always look at yourselves. And this is why I don't hide the fact that I was a rotten sinner, a terrible kid, and I'm still, you know, I still have capabilities of being a rotten man, you know, except for the grace of God. He gives me grace to do the right thing. So remember what God has done in your life. If you're going through a trial or a hard time, think back at a time where God saved you from something you thought was unsavable. Because like my priest always says, you know, we can't do anything about the past, and the future is never as bad as we always think it is. The future never plans out, never goes out the way we think it's going to be. No matter we think it's going to be great or we think it's going to be horrible. So just live in the present, be thankful that God gives us a chance every day to go to Him and ask for forgiveness, go to Him and ask us to change us, to go to Him and just be thankful. Be thankful that by the grace of God, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And if He never did another good thing for you in your life, He did the greatest thing that anyone ever did. He died for you so you could spend eternity in heaven with Him. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and God bless.